The bank reached out saying they were collecting on a $529,000 mortgage under my name. I hadn't signed a single document. That's when I learned my parents had attached me to my sister's loan without ever telling me. What I did afterward made their faces go completely pale. That Tuesday morning, my entire world shattered with one phone call. A collections agent, her voice cold and demanding, told me I was 30 days past due on a $500,000 mortgage for a luxury condo I'd never even heard of. My name, my social security number, but not my debt. The blood just ran cold in my veins. I stammered, insisted it was impossible. I'd never applied for a mortgage, never signed a single document. But then she rattled off my social security number, my birth date, even my employer, all of it chillingly accurate. My hands started to tremble, the ground falling out from under me. I fled the conference room, practically collapsing into my truck in the plant parking lot, desperately trying to make sense of the nightmare unfolding. Janet Morrison, the collections agent, had been absolutely relentless, deaf to my pleas of ignorance about this Phoenix Grand Towers condo. See, I'd always been the reliable one, the middle child who played by the rules. My younger sister, Jessica, though, she was the golden child, 28 years old, and never holding a job for more than 6 months. While I hustled through college with 2 jobs, graduating with a business degree from ASU, Jessica bounced from community college to community college, always needing money. It brought me back to a family dinner just 2 months prior. My father, Robert, a former sales manager, sat back, a perpetually worried frown etched between his graying temples. He'd announced, "Anton, it's your duty as her big brother to help Jessica get on her feet." My mother, Linda, petite and always bustling, had nodded along vigorously, refilling our iced tea. "Family comes first, Anton," she'd chirped, her reading glasses perched on her nose. "You really should help Jessica with a down payment for her own place. She just needs stability to find her path." I'd politely, firmly, declined, explaining my own plans to save for a house. Jessica, of course, had pouted, twirling her blonde hair, whining that everyone expected her to live in some gross apartment forever. Dad had just given me that familiar look of disappointment, the one he'd perfected throughout my childhood whenever I dared to not meet his expectations. My heart hammered against my ribs. I pulled up my credit report on my phone, and what I saw made my stomach plummet into my shoes. There it was, the $500,000 mortgage, glaring back at me. But that was just the beginning. Credit cards I'd never opened, a car loan for a BMW I'd never purchased, utility accounts for addresses I'd never lived at. All of them, every single one, linked to Jessica's Phoenix address on Camelback Road. My pristine credit score, something I'd meticulously built, had utterly cratered from excellent to poor. I scrolled, each fraudulent account a fresh, physical blow. A $15,000 Visa, maxed out. A $20,000 MasterCard, maxed out. Store cards from luxury retailers I couldn't even dream of shopping at, despite my respectable salary as an operations manager. The car loan especially twisted the knife. Me, the guy who drove a sensible, nearly paid-off Honda Civic, now apparently owned a brand new $45,000 BMW 3 Series. The payments alone would have eaten up a third of my take-home pay. I called my parents' landline, the number unchanged since childhood. My mother's cheerful voice on the answering machine was a cruel irony. I hung up, a sickening dread coiling in my gut. That 3-hour drive from Tucson to Scottsdale felt like an eternity. I called in sick, a rarity in my 6 years at the company, a reputation for reliability I'd painstakingly built. My supervisor, Bill, sounded genuinely concerned. The irony burned. I'd spent my adult life crafting an image of responsibility, only to find my own family had been systematically dismantling my financial future. As the Sonoran Desert blurred past, I tried to connect the dots. My apartment was secure, my mail locked away. I'd never given anyone my personal info. But then the small, insidious details surfaced. My parents surprising me with groceries while I was at work, my mom updating her address book, my dad's overly keen interest in my salary. The puzzle pieces were clicking, forming a picture so ugly I didn't want to see it. As Phoenix's sprawl swallowed the desert, a cold certainty settled. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was something far more sinister. I pulled up to their modest ranch house in Scottsdale, the same beige stucco, the familiar desert landscaping. But there, in the driveway, glinting in the harsh Arizona sun, sat a brand new BMW 3 Series. I just sat there, frozen, staring at the BMW in the driveway. The pristine car, still with temporary plates, humming with that new car smell. Jessica, who'd whined for years about her beat-up Corolla, now had this. Before I could move, the front door swung open. Jessica, resplendent in designer jeans and a top I knew was expensive, hair perfectly styled, jewelry I'd never seen. She looked surprised, but certainly not alarmed. "Anton, what are you doing here? Is everything okay?" she asked, that familiar childish whine in her voice. "We need to talk," I said, forcing the words out, walking toward the house. Inside, my parents were in their usual spots in the living room, a time capsule of my high school years. Beige furniture, family photos on the mantel, Mom's desert sunset painting. My father muted the TV, seeing the thunder on my face. "Son, you look upset. What's wrong?" I shoved my phone into his hands, the credit report blazing on the screen. "This is what's wrong. Someone's been using my identity, and according to the bank, I owe over $500,000 on a mortgage I never applied for." The silence was absolute. My mother's face went white. Her hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. My father's jaw clenched, a quick, furtive glance exchanged with Jessica. "Oh, Anton, there must be a mistake," Mom whispered. "Identity theft happens all the time. You should report it to the police," she managed weakly. "Linda," Dad snapped, cutting her off. Jessica, meanwhile, flopped onto the couch with an exaggerated sigh. "Look, Anton, before you get all dramatic, you need to understand something. We had to help me somehow. You weren't even using your good credit." Her casual entitlement hit me like a physical blow. "What do you mean, we?" My father stepped forward, chest puffed out, adopting that authoritative stance from childhood lectures. "We're family, Anton. Family helps family. You have excellent credit, a good job." Jessica needed a chance to build something for herself. "By stealing my identity?" My voice rose, despite my desperate efforts to stay calm. "We didn't steal anything," my mother interjected, finding her voice again. "We're your parents. We plan to tell you eventually. Family helps family, you know that." Jessica then launched into a completely unprompted, entitled explanation of her life in the luxury condo. 8 months she'd been there. Rooftop pool, fitness center, 24-hour concierge. No payments, of course. She just assumed I'd handle it. "The condo is so nice, Anton. Floor-to-ceiling windows, mountain views. Granite countertops. It's exactly where I need to be to meet the right kind of people." She even pulled out her phone, proudly showing off photos of the exquisitely decorated unit. Parties filled with well-dressed strangers. "Where did you get the money for all this furniture?" I asked, my voice flat. "Oh, there are these great rental places. I just put it on the credit cards." "What credit cards?" My father cleared his throat, suddenly taking charge. "Anton, we need to explain how this all works. Your mother and we've had financial difficulties, and Jessica needed a stable situation. We've been accessing your mail for about 2 years now." The words hit me like ice water. "You've been what?" My mother then produced a key from her purse, the one I'd given them for emergencies after my appendix surgery in Tucson. "You never asked for it back, so we thought you were okay with us having access." They'd systematically intercepted my mail, including credit offers. Dad then, with disturbing pride, admitted to practicing my signature by tracing documents until he could perfectly replicate it. They even had fake IDs made, using my info but Jessica's photo. "Robert knows a guy from his old sales job," Jessica chimed in nonchalantly. "He makes really convincing IDs for $100 each." My mother returned from the bedroom with a manila folder stuffed with forged loan documents, applications, statements. Every signature, a fake, but terrifyingly good fakes. Someone had put serious effort into this. "We've been planning this for a while," my father said, a hint of self-satisfaction in his voice. "Your credit was just sitting there, doing nothing. Jessica needed opportunities, and you were in a position to help, whether you knew it or not." The folder held applications I'd never seen, bank statements I'd never received, even a lease agreement for Jessica's condo listing me as the responsible party. Jessica continued, her voice as casual as if she were ordering lunch, describing other loans. A $25,000 personal loan for a boutique that never materialized. A $30,000 business line of credit used for vacations. and shopping. With each revelation, the pit in my stomach deepened, my anger growing into a silent roar. "How much total?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My father pulled out a small notebook. "Well, the original mortgage was $600,000, but with the home equity line and all the credit cards Jessica's been using, I'd say we're looking at close to $800,000 total." $800,000. More money than I'd earn in a decade, stolen from my identity, blown on shallow luxuries. My careful budgeting, my brown bag lunches, my meticulously maintained Honda Civic, all of it felt like a cruel joke. "And you expected me to just go along with this when I found out?" "We expected you to understand family obligations," my father said sternly. "We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years. This is how children repay their parents." My mother nodded vigorously. "Besides, you make good money at that plant job. You don't need perfect credit like Jessica does." The sheer, twisted logic of it stole my breath. They'd committed multiple felonies, destroyed my financial life. Yet I was the selfish one for objecting? The audacity was beyond comprehension. Jessica, finally tearing her eyes from her phone, dropped another bomb. "Oh, and Anton, I'm pregnant." The room erupted. My parents immediately beamed, Mom openly weeping with joy. For a terrifying moment, the $800,000 vanished as the narrative warped into a family celebration. "Pregnant?" My mother gasped, rushing to Jessica. "How far along? Who's the father?" "Oh, honey, this is wonderful news." Jessica, radiating satisfaction, as if she'd just played a winning lottery ticket, announced, 8 weeks. "Derek Thompson. You'd like him." "Mom, he's a lawyer." Dad, with a smug nod, echoed, "A lawyer. Excellent, Jessica. A professional man with good prospects." I felt nauseous. Here I was, drowning in fraudulent debt, and they were celebrating. "We need to talk about the money before anything else." I cut in, my voice sharp. My mother snapped, "Anton, your sister just announced she's having a baby. Can't you be happy for her?" "No, Mom. I can't be happy when she's utterly destroyed my entire financial life." Jessica's face hardened. "I haven't destroyed anything. I've been building something. Derek doesn't know about the baby yet. But when I tell him, he's going to want to marry me. His family has money. Real money. This condo situation? It's temporary." Dad chimed in, explaining the Thompsons owned a massive law firm in Phoenix. Derek, an associate, met Jessica at a charity event. My stomach churned. I finally demanded to see all the documentation. Dad, looking uncomfortable, produced a second, much thicker folder. The scope of the theft, the sheer audacity, was staggering. The $600,000 mortgage for the condo, another $150,000 home equity line of credit drawn against it, $60,000 of which Jessica had already blown on lifestyle expenses, furniture, car payments, clothes. Jessica, with the same casual pride she'd shown for her condo photos, scrolled through her Instagram. Hawaii, Vegas, shopping sprees at luxury boutiques, meals where a single entree cost more than my weekly groceries. "Derek's been taking me to these amazing places," she purred, flashing pictures of herself in designer dresses. "His friends all have money, so I need to fit in. $12,000 for Hawaii, $8,000 for Vegas. A wardrobe that cost more than I made in 3 months. All on credit cards opened in my name." But the real gut punch came when my father finally confessed his own situation. He'd lost his sales job 18 months ago, hiding his unemployment even from my mother. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage. They'd been using my stolen credit to make their house payments. "I've been looking for work," he said defensively. "The job market for men my age is terrible. Mom, working part-time at Nordstrom, barely made enough to cover their basics. So, instead of downsizing, instead of asking for help, you stole from me?" "Honestly, Anton," my mother replied, "we couldn't ask you for help. You would have lectured us about financial responsibility and made us feel terrible." The irony choked me. They'd committed massive fraud, but my lectures were the greater evil? Jessica elaborated on her relationship with Derek. She'd lied about everything: her job, income, living situation. The condo was an elaborate charade to impress his family, who apparently resided in a multi-million-dollar Paradise Valley mansion. "Derek's parents are very particular," she explained. "His mother, Sarah, is on charity boards. His father, William, is a senior partner at their firm. They expect Derek to marry within their social circle. So you decided to lie about everything? I repeated, aghast. I'm not lying. I'm positioning myself for success. There's a difference. She showed me photos of Derek, handsome, confident, wealthy. Derek's planning to propose soon, she stated, absolute certainty in her voice. I just need to maintain the right image until then. Once we're engaged, his family's money will solve all these temporary financial problems. The pregnancy, she revealed, was part of this strategy. A trump card to force his hand, regardless of his family's approval. Prenatal vitamins, expensive Scottsdale OB/GYNs already researched. What if he doesn't propose? I challenged. He will, she dismissed, utterly unburdened by consequence. Men like Derek don't abandon pregnant girlfriends. It would look terrible for his family's reputation. My father was all in on this fantasy. Derek's family was the golden ticket, not just for Jessica, but for their problems too. This is all going to work out, he assured me. You just need to be patient and supportive while Jessica handles the relationship. They had built an entire house of cards on my stolen identity, believing my ruined credit was an acceptable casualty. They expected me to either fix it or simply swallow the damage. What about the $800,000? I demanded. Even if Jessica marries Derek, how does that solve the immediate problem? My mother, with stunning naivete, waved a dismissive hand. Derek's family will handle it. Rich people pay off debts all the time to avoid scandal. They'd constructed an elaborate fantasy. Pregnancy leads to marriage, which leads to financial rescue, which somehow justifies the colossal fraud. The idea that Derek might react negatively to being manipulated hadn't even crossed their minds. Standing in that living room, a place I'd once called home, I finally understood. I wasn't just dealing with a dysfunctional family. I was dealing with criminals who had lost all touch with reality, who had convinced themselves they were being resourceful family members, not perpetrators of serious crimes. 2 days later, I found myself across from Derek Thompson in a downtown Phoenix Starbucks. Jessica had set it up, painting me as her responsible older brother, eager to meet her boyfriend, keeping him completely in the dark about the financial train wreck she'd created. Derek was exactly as I'd pictured him, polished, confident, in a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. He spoke with that easy assurance of someone who'd never known a moment's doubt about his place in the world. Jessica's told me so much about you, he said, shaking my hand with a firm grip. She's so proud of your manufacturing company. Southwest Industrial Solutions, right? Starting from nothing and building it into a regional success. Very impressive. I nearly choked on my coffee. Manufacturing company? I was an operations manager, not a CEO. The lies were multiplying faster than I could track. I took a deep breath. Derek, there are some things about Jessica's situation that you really need to know. Important things that affect your relationship. His friendly demeanor evaporated, replaced by a flicker of concern. What kind of things? I laid it all out. The identity theft, the fraudulent mortgage, the colossal debt. Derek, a lawyer himself, listened with unnerving focus, asking sharp, clarifying questions, taking notes on his phone. When I finished, he looked up, his face pale. Are you telling me Jessica doesn't actually own that condo? Jessica doesn't own anything, Derek. Everything she has, the car, the furniture, the expensive dinners, the vacations, it was all purchased with my stolen credit. It's all fraud. He was stunned. She told me she worked in marketing, had excellent credit. We were even discussing buying an investment property together. I explained she'd never held a steady job, had no legitimate income. For a long moment, Derek just stared into his coffee. Then, he pulled out his phone. Dad, I need you to meet me at the office. We have a situation. An hour later, I was in a conference room at Thompson Hayes & Associates, a law firm so prestigious it occupied 3 floors of a Phoenix high-rise. Polished wood, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city like a king surveying his domain. William Thompson, Derek's father, was an imposing man in his 60s, silver-haired, with the commanding presence of a seasoned courtroom warrior. He listened to my harrowing tale with the detached air of someone evaluating a complex business deal, not a personal catastrophe. This is obviously a serious criminal matter, he stated coolly when I finished. Identity theft, mortgage fraud, credit fraud. Multiple felonies. Potential prison sentences. Derek looked utterly crushed. I had no idea, Dad. Jessica seemed so put together, so successful. William fixed Derek with a hard gaze. She's a con artist, son. A skilled one, but a con artist nonetheless. Then he turned his calculating eyes on me. The question now is how we protect Derek from any association with these crimes. I thought he meant helping Derek separate from Jessica. I was wrong. His solution? I signed documents accepting legal responsibility for all the debts, framing them as legitimate family loans instead of fraud. If you pursue criminal charges, Mr. Anton, Derek could be called as a witness, William explained, his voice chillingly calm. His relationship with Jessica makes him a person of interest. That kind of publicity could destroy our firm's reputation and Derek's career. But I'm the victim here. I protested, my voice cracking. That's debatable, he countered. Family financial disputes often involve shared credit arrangements that turn contentious. A prosecutor might argue you willingly participated, and now you're experiencing buyer's remorse. He then produced a folder, its contents making my blood run cold. Photos of me entering my parents' house, records of their key to my apartment, even bank statements showing deposits into my account followed by large withdrawals. We've done some preliminary investigation, he said matter-of-factly. Your parents accessing your mail and apartment for years. That suggests ongoing permission. Jessica has been posting expensive purchases on social media for months, and you never reported identity theft during that time. He was actively building a case to frame me as a willing participant, not the victim. His firm's formidable legal power, meant to protect Derek, was now being wielded as a weapon against me. If you refuse to accept responsibility, he continued, we'll be forced to report to authorities that you participated in defrauding financial institutions and are now trying to escape consequences by claiming victimization. Derek looked deeply uncomfortable, but remained silent, trapped under the weight of his father's immense power and expectations. William's threats continued, delivered with the casualness of someone ordering lunch. Proving lack of knowledge for criminal identity theft is difficult with the documentation we've found. However, if you sign papers accepting these debts as legitimate family arrangements, it becomes a civil matter, not criminal. You're asking me to accept $800,000 in debt I didn't create, I exclaimed. I'm offering you a way to avoid federal criminal charges. Without our cooperation, prosecutors will assume you're lying about your knowledge of these accounts. This meeting stripped away any illusions. Derek's family wasn't interested in justice. They were interested in eliminating any embarrassment or legal exposure for themselves, even if it meant utterly destroying an innocent life. William even had documents showing he'd already contacted creditors, subtly casting doubt on my claims of identity theft. He had poisoned the well before I even knew there was a problem. Finally, Derek spoke, his voice strained. Dad, this seems wrong. Anton is the victim here. William merely scoffed. Derek, you're thinking like an idealist, not a lawyer. Our responsibility is protecting our family and firm, not playing hero for strangers. I felt the walls closing in. I was trapped in a nightmare. These powerful people had the resources, the legal might, to crush me, and I had nothing but the raw, brutal truth. The meeting ended with William giving me 48 hours to decide, accept responsibility for fraudulent debts, or face criminal charges for identity theft conspiracy. He handed me his business card, a sardonic smirk playing on his lips. I hope you make the smart choice, Anton. Prison is very unpleasant for people who defraud banks. Leaving that opulent law firm, the full weight of it hit me. The stakes had spiraled far beyond family drama. I was up against powerful individuals who saw destroying my life as acceptable collateral damage to protect their own reputations. Derek followed me to the elevator, his face etched with conflict. Anton, I want you to know, I don't agree with my father's approach. But you're not going to stop him. I can't. He controls my career, my income, everything. I'm sorry. The elevator doors closed between us, and I knew, with a bone-chilling certainty, I was utterly alone against a force with every advantage, except the truth. That evening, huddled in my Tucson apartment, I frantically researched criminal defense attorneys specializing in identity theft. My painstakingly saved $20,000, built over 6 years, felt like a pathetic sum against the legal firepower of the Thompsons. But I had no other choice. I found Patricia Vega. Her website described a former prosecutor, now defending white-collar crime victims. Her office was a humble, converted house near the University of Arizona campus, a stark contrast to Thompson Hayes' skyscraper opulence. But her credentials were sterling. Successful cases against major financial institutions and identity theft rings. When I called her emergency number, she answered personally, even at that late hour. I poured out the entire story. She listened, taking meticulous notes, asking questions that instantly confirmed her sharp expertise. Mr. Thompson is using classic intimidation tactics, she calmly stated when I finished. Victims of identity theft cannot be legally forced to accept responsibility for crimes committed against them. His threats are baseless. Patricia's calm confidence was the first glimmer of hope I'd had in weeks. We met the next morning, her office a warm, organized chaos of legal texts and case files. Patricia, small, sharp-eyed, with streaks of gray in her hair, seemed to miss nothing. "I've dealt with William Thompson before," she said, reviewing my documents. 5 years ago, he was sanctioned by the state bar for witness intimidation in a white-collar crime case. He has a pattern of using legal threats to silence victims rather than reporting crimes properly. She explained that Thompson's firm often employed such tactics to protect wealthy clients from embarrassing investigations. He was betting I didn't have the resources or knowledge to fight back. He miscalculated. Patricia's strategy was brilliant and comprehensive. We'd gather irrefutable evidence of the fraud, while simultaneously exposing Thompson's unethical maneuvers. She connected me with Detective Maria Santos of the Phoenix Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit, a sharp, professional woman specializing in complex financial cases. Her office, bustling with activity, was filled with files and crime-fighting tech. "Jessica Thompson is already on our radar," Detective Santos revealed, reviewing my pile of documents. "She's been involved in other fraudulent schemes, posing as a successful businesswoman to obtain credit cards under false pretenses." This stunned me. Jessica wasn't just a family disappointment. She was a career criminal, systematically defrauding financial institutions across Phoenix. Detective Santos showed me files documenting Jessica's past, fake employment verifications for rentals, forged references for credit, even posing as a real estate agent to collect deposits on properties she didn't control. "Your case is the most sophisticated we've seen from her," Santos confirmed, "but it fits the pattern. She targets family because they're less likely to report immediately." Patricia then suggested I wear recording devices for any future conversations with my family or the Thompsons. Arizona, thankfully, was a one-party consent state. I could legally record without their knowledge. The next day, a tiny digital recorder hidden on me, I walked back into my parents' house. They were expecting my surrender. "Have you thought about what we discussed?" my father asked, his voice laced with expectation. "I've thought about it a lot," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. "I'm trying to understand how my own family could steal my identity, utterly destroy my credit, and then expect me to take responsibility for crimes I didn't commit." My mother started to cry. "Anton, we're not criminals. We're your family. We needed help. There's a difference. Stealing someone's identity and forging their signature are crimes, Mom. Federal crimes." Jessica, ever the pragmatist, shrugged off the emotion. "Look, Anton, this is temporary. Derek's going to propose. Once I marry into his family, money won't be an issue. Have you told Derek you're pregnant?" I probed. "Not yet. Waiting for the right moment. But when I do, he'll be thrilled. He's mentioned wanting kids." I pushed for details, forcing them to reveal the meticulous horror of their scheme. My father, disturbingly proud, explained how they'd intercepted my mail, using my mother's retail job to verify employment information. "Linda knows people in the credit department at Nordstrom," he boasted. "They helped us understand how credit applications work. They'd routinely accessed my Tucson apartment, not just for mail, but to gather personal details for security questions, my mother's maiden name, my first pet's name, all the answers they inherently knew because they'd raised me." The recorder silently captured Jessica's casual admissions of using my credit for vacations, jewelry, lavish dinners with Derek, shopping sprees. Nothing about a stable living situation, just maintaining a fraudulent lifestyle. The most damning confession? My father admitting this wasn't their first rodeo. We helped Marcus with some credit issues 10 years ago, when he was going through his divorce. Marcus, my older brother, who'd moved to Seattle and rarely spoke to anyone. I'd always just assumed he was busy. The truth was far more chilling. With hours of damning admissions recorded, Patricia bypassed William Thompson's iron wall and contacted Derek directly. We met at a neutral coffee shop, far from his father's influence. Derek arrived, looking haggard and utterly stressed. "My father is furious you hired an attorney," he said immediately. "He says it proves you're preparing to make false accusations." "Derek," Patricia said, her voice firm, "your father is actively trying to frame an innocent person for crimes he knows your girlfriend committed. How do you feel about that?" For the first time, I saw a flicker of conscience, a true grappling with the moral abyss his family inhabited. "I've been thinking about this constantly," he admitted. "What Jessica did was wrong. And what my father is doing, that's wrong too." Patricia then presented him with our evidence. Recordings of Jessica's casual confessions, my parents detailing their systematic identity theft. "Derek, you're a victim here, too," she explained. "Jessica has been lying to you about everything. Her job, her income, her living situation, even her pregnancy claims." "Pregnancy claims?" he echoed, a horrifying realization dawning. I showed him Jessica's recent social media posts, photos of her drinking at parties, a complaint about a late period due to stress. There was no pregnancy, only another calculated lie. Derek stared at the photos, a long, agonizing silence. "She told me she was definitely pregnant, said she'd seen a doctor." He looked up, his eyes hollow. "She lied about that, just like she lied about everything else." In that moment, for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a surge of hope. Someone on his side might actually help. Derek made a decision that likely saved both our futures. "I want to help you prove what really happened. I want to distance myself from Jessica completely." He then revealed that his mother, Sarah, had been deeply uncomfortable with William's ruthless tactics from the start. She'd been quietly documenting her husband's unethical practices for years, just waiting for the right moment. "My mother is a good person, trapped in a marriage to someone who's lost his moral compass," Derek confided. "She'll help if we approach her correctly." The investigation was no longer just about my stolen identity. It was expanding to expose a pervasive pattern of criminal behavior. Patricia was confident. We would not only clear my name, but ensure justice for everyone involved. A week later, I set up what my family believed would be their final victory lap, a meeting to finalize my acceptance of Jessica's fraudulent debts. The stage was my parents' living room, the very same space where their betrayal had first unfolded. What they didn't know, outside, Detective Santos and FBI agent James Rodriguez were meticulously poised, sophisticated listening equipment trained, recording every single word for federal prosecution. Patricia had coordinated with the feds. These weren't just local crimes. They crossed state lines and met the federal thresholds for major financial fraud. I walked in to find Jessica, Derek, and William Thompson already assembled around the coffee table, a stack of papers, William's prepared documents for my surrender, spread out. "Anton," my father greeted me with sickeningly forced warmth. "Glad you're here. Mr. Thompson has everything prepared. Once you sign, this whole misunderstanding can be put behind us." Derek, meanwhile, looked deeply uncomfortable, fidgeting with his phone, avoiding Jessica's gaze. William Thompson, radiating his usual arrogance, commanded the room. "I trust you've had time to consider the consequences of refusing our generous offer. The alternative, as you know, is criminal prosecution for conspiracy to commit identity theft." I looked at them, taking a moment to steel myself. "Before I decide anything, for my own peace of mind, I'd like to hear everyone admit what they actually did." Jessica rolled her eyes. "Anton, we've been over this. We helped ourselves to your credit because you weren't using it. Family helps family. Can you be more specific about how you helped yourselves?" I pressed. My mother, with an almost sickening pride, pulled out the folder of forged documents. "We practiced your signature until Robert could copy it perfectly. Then we used your mail for pre-approved credit offers and submitted the applications." My father, emboldened, joined in. "The hardest part was getting photo identification with your name and Jessica's picture. But I knew a guy from my sales days who makes quality fake IDs for a reasonable price." They were confessing, openly and casually, to multiple felonies. Federal agents were recording every single word. The casual disregard for the decades of prison time they were accruing was absolutely breathtaking. William Thompson, oblivious, eager to finalize his victory, interjected, "Now that we've reviewed the situation, let's get these papers signed so everyone can move forward." "Actually," I said, standing up, my voice ringing clear, "there's something else I need to tell everyone first." I walked to the front door, pulling it open. Standing there, badges gleaming, were Detective Santos and Agent Rodriguez, each holding folders containing arrest warrants. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, my heart pounding, but my voice steady, "I'd like you to meet Detective Santos from Phoenix PD and Agent Rodriguez from the FBI. They've been listening to our conversation and recording admissions of federal crimes." The room exploded. My mother screamed, dropping her water glass, which shattered on the tile. My father leaped up, backing away toward the hallway, his face a mask of horror. Jessica crumpled, sobbing, pleading that she was pregnant, that she couldn't go to jail. William Thompson's arrogant smirk vanished, replaced by pure, unadulterated terror. "You can't record private conversations without consent. This is illegal entrapment," he blustered. Agent Rodriguez offered a cold, calm smile. "Arizona is a one-party consent state, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Anton had every right to record conversations involving crimes committed against him." Detective Santos began reading Miranda rights. Agent Rodriguez outlined the charges: Robert and Linda, federal charges for identity theft, mail fraud, and conspiracy. Jessica, multiple counts of credit fraud, identity theft, and forgery. William Thompson, extortion and witness intimidation. "Mr. Thompson," Agent Rodriguez added, his voice cutting, "we've also been investigating your law firm's pattern of intimidating victims in financial crime cases. Your state bar sanctions from 5 years ago made you a person of interest in several other matters." The house was swarmed. While my family was processed for arrest, federal agents uncovered a trove of additional evidence in my parents' bedroom: fake documents, copies of my identity papers, and horrifyingly detailed records showing they'd been systematically stealing mail from multiple family members for years. Jessica's phone contained text messages with Derek that absolutely debunked her pregnancy claims. She'd been researching symptoms, planning to fake a miscarriage after securing an engagement ring. Derek, untainted by the crimes himself, was released after providing testimony about Jessica's lies and his father's intimidation. He looked devastated, but also deeply relieved, as agents led Jessica away in handcuffs. "I'm sorry, Anton," he said, standing with me in my parents' driveway. "I should have seen what was happening sooner." The most shocking discovery of all came from Jessica's condo. Tucked away in her bedroom closet were documents related to other identity theft schemes, targeting previous boyfriends, even random acquaintances whose personal information she'd harvested from social media. Detective Santos showed me files Jessica had kept on potential future victims. "Your sister," she stated bluntly, "was running sophisticated identity theft operations, targeting multiple people simultaneously. This isn't family financial stress. She's a career criminal." My parents were taken into federal custody, still clinging to their delusional narrative, still protesting they were just helping their daughter, still calling me ungrateful. The delusion persisted, even as the cuffs clicked shut and their rights were read. My father's final words, as they loaded him into a federal vehicle: "You destroyed this family, Anton. All you had to do was help your sister." The house search also revealed their plans to steal identities from other relatives, cousins, Jessica's ex-boyfriends. They'd collected personal information on dozens of people who'd simply visited their home over the years. Agent Rodriguez assured me federal prosecutors were confident. "Identity theft cases are hard when victims wait to report," he said, "but your family essentially confessed to everything. This is the strongest case of its type I've ever seen." As twilight fell and the last federal vehicle vanished from my parents' street, I stood alone in the driveway. The same driveway where I'd learned to ride my bike, played countless games of basketball. The house itself looked unchanged, but everything inside, everything about my family, had been exposed as an elaborate, horrifying criminal conspiracy. Patricia arrived to drive me back to Tucson. I was too emotionally drained to make the trip myself. "How do you feel?" she asked gently as we pulled away. "Like I've been living in a lie for years," I managed, without even knowing it. The confrontation was over, but the legal battle was just beginning. Federal prosecutors had promised aggressive pursuit of restitution and a complete restoration of my credit. More importantly, I was finally free. Free from a family that had seen my financial future as their personal piggy bank. The betrayal was a gaping wound, but the raw truth, painful as it was, felt incredibly liberating. 6 months later, I sat in a federal courtroom in Phoenix, watching my family receive their sentences. The process had moved swiftly. Facing overwhelming evidence, they'd all chosen to plead guilty. My father received 5 years in federal prison for identity theft and mail fraud. At 57, he'd be over 60 upon release, his reputation and career irrevocably destroyed. My mother received 3 years, reduced slightly for cooperation and her lesser role. Jessica, however, faced the harshest sentence, 7 years for multiple counts of credit fraud, identity theft, and what the prosecutors called systematic financial predation. The judge noted her sophisticated planning and utter disregard for her victims, even her own family. During sentencing, Jessica finally broke, genuinely sobbing as the reality of prison crashed down. The luxury condo, the BMW, the designer clothes, all the ill-gotten gains gone. Derek, having moved to Denver, had blocked all contact. William Thompson's legal career ended in public disgrace. Disbarred for extortion and witness intimidation, his firm crumbled as other victims, emboldened by my case, came forward with similar stories. He too faced criminal charges, likely resulting in prison. The asset recovery process exceeded Patricia's expectations. The condo sold, its proceeds applied to the fraudulent mortgage. Jessica's BMW and furniture were seized, auctioned off. Even her designer clothing was liquidated for restitution. My credit? Completely restored. All fraudulent accounts erased, my score soaring back to excellent. The ordeal had forced me to become hyper-vigilant about my credit and personal information, a hard-won lesson. But the most profound healing began when I reconnected with family members I'd lost touch with, particularly my older brother, Marcus. He flew in from Seattle for the sentencing hearings, and we spent hours dissecting the twisted family dynamics we'd both endured. I should have warned you, Marcus confessed over dinner. They tried the same thing with me 10 years ago, on a smaller scale. I just moved across the country instead of confronting them. He revealed our parents had opened credit cards in his name during his divorce, racking up $30,000 in debt. He'd quietly paid it off, distancing himself, believing he was protecting them. But really, he realized, I was just enabling them to target someone else. We understood then. They'd been testing their identity theft techniques on Marcus, and his silence had given them the confidence to launch their far more elaborate scheme against me. Marcus and I began building a real adult relationship, something we'd never had growing up. He was a successful software engineer, with a stable marriage and 2 children I'd barely known existed. Our dysfunctional family had pushed us apart, but our shared experience with their crimes brought us back together, stronger. I also connected with Derek's mother, Sarah. She'd filed for divorce from William after his arrest, having documented his unethical practices for years, just waiting for the courage to act. I was trapped by fear and financial dependence, she told me over coffee. Watching him try to destroy you to protect his reputation was the final straw. Sarah became a passionate advocate for victims of legal intimidation, working with bar associations to expose and sanction attorneys like William. Her testimony was pivotal in his conviction. This entire ordeal taught me profound lessons about family and personal boundaries. For years, I'd shouldered guilt and obligation for problems I didn't create, believing loyalty demanded I accept abuse. Patricia helped me see that protecting myself wasn't selfish. It was essential to halt a destructive cycle. Enablement isn't love, she explained. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in destructive behavior. I began volunteering with identity theft victim support groups, sharing my story, helping others navigate the bewildering legal process. The emotional trauma of family betrayal was a common thread, and peer support often proved more potent than professional counseling. Speaking at community events about identity theft prevention became a regular activity. My story, particularly effective because it showed how family members could become perpetrators, challenged the assumption that identity theft only involved strangers. This volunteer work introduced me to incredible people who had triumphed over similar betrayals, building healthy lives despite profound family dysfunction. Their stories inspired me to focus on a future free from past trauma. A year after the sentencing, with my credit fully restored and my savings replenished, I bought a house in Tucson. A 3-bedroom ranch, quiet neighborhood. It represented not just a home, but financial independence, security that no one could ever steal or manipulate again. It was a tangible testament to my recovery. Marcus and his family visited for the housewarming, along with Patricia, Detective Santos, and Sarah Thompson. It was the kind of celebration I'd longed for my entire life, but never experienced with my birth family. Genuine, supportive, built on mutual respect, not obligation. Derek sent a thoughtful card, congratulating me. He'd started working for a legal aid organization in Denver, using his law degree to help low-income families. A clear shift, motivated by his father's corruption, towards meaningful work. The financial recovery exceeded all expectations. Restitution from asset seizures totaled over $400,000, completely wiping out the fraudulent debts and providing additional compensation. Federal prosecutors, armed with overwhelming evidence, had been relentlessly aggressive in pursuing recovery. More importantly, I'd learned to discern genuine family relationships from manipulative dysfunction disguised as loyalty. True love doesn't demand accepting criminal behavior or sacrificing your well-being for another's convenience. The hardest lesson of all was accepting that some people, even family, will choose destructive behavior over healthy relationships. My parents had countless opportunities to seek honest help, but chose crime instead. Jessica could have built legitimate success, but she preferred shortcuts that hurt innocent people. Understanding these choices as their responsibility, not my failure, was absolutely crucial for my emotional healing. I couldn't have prevented their crimes by being more helpful or more understanding. They chose crime because they believed they deserved what others had worked for. The worst betrayal of my life ultimately freed me from toxic family dynamics, teaching me the profound difference between genuine love and manipulative control. Sometimes, protecting yourself is the most loving thing you can do for everyone involved. Today, my real family is built on honesty and mutual support. Patricia is a cherished friend and mentor. Marcus and I talk weekly, vacation together annually. Sarah Thompson has become the mother I never truly had, offering wisdom without manipulation. This experience taught me that family isn't solely defined by genetics, but by choosing to treat each other with respect, honesty, and genuine care. My new, chosen family is smaller than the one I was born into, but infinitely more supportive and trustworthy. Looking back, I'm profoundly grateful for that phone call on that Tuesday morning. Without it, I might have spent years unknowingly enabling criminal behavior, my financial future systematically destroyed. Sometimes, the worst news leads to the best possible outcomes. The identity theft was devastating, yes, but recovery was possible because I chose to fight, rather than accept false responsibility for crimes I didn't commit. Standing up to that manipulation and intimidation was the most difficult, but ultimately, the most important decision I've ever made. So, I have to ask you, have you ever faced a situation where family members expected you to sacrifice your well-being for their convenience? How do you balance loyalty with protecting yourself from manipulation? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with anyone who might benefit from understanding how family relationships can become toxic and what recovery truly looks like. Subscribe for more stories about overcoming betrayal and building healthy boundaries. Thank you for listening to my journey from victim to survivor. Remember, you deserve relationships built on respect and honesty, not obligation and manipulation. Sometimes, the hardest decisions lead to the most freedom.